we've got a storm coming through. And I'm like, I was going to bed, believe it or not. I'm walking on air. I never thought I could feel so high. Oh my God. A wing and a prayer, believe it or not, it's me. There's a storm coming out there. And I was just like, I just can't let the thunder. I didn't even plug in the microphones because it would get rid of the ambient noise and things like that. Oh, lightning. I gotta shut the lights off. And I was like, I gotta talk about something, but there was a guy from Ireland that commented on something I did a week or so ago, and I was like, I'm gonna talk about fucking Limerick. And I just, I haven't gotten around to it. But it seems like a fine time to do it. Why not open the window? That's better, isn't it? Listen to the timbre in the voice. It changes your whole notion. So I was living in Bath, England for some time on the Avon, near the Weir, up the hill. The 7 fucking hills around there, why the Romans picked that place and built baths. And that's why the name of the place is Bath. But I lived there for about 4.5 months, 1 year. And however you want to look at that, yeah, fact check me. 4.5 months isn't a year, but within the period of a year, I lived there 4.5 months, so go fuck yourself. And the last weekend I was gonna be there, it was, do I go to Scotland with these guys that I was held in custody in New York? They never did put handcuffs on, but that was it. I mean, I offered the guy that was guarding us a shot of vodka, and he pulled his jacket back and showed his sidearm, and I said, okay, and so I drank it. I mean, you know, could have gone to Scotland with them or over to Ireland. Here's to you, guy in Ireland. Took a boat over, found money on the boat, and I will tell you this. The very best Guinness I've ever had was in Dublin. Dublin, it's the best. And I realized when I got back to the United States, I couldn't drink it for the longest years. I couldn't touch it. Because what? Because the US had laws about how much alcohol you can put in it. And you have to have a certain amount of alcohol in the Guinness to make it fucking taste right. Guinness for strength. And it was just perfect. And, you know, they would just sit there and pour it for 15 minutes at a time. And you sit there and you say, I ain't no better than to say anything at all, because this is going to be good. And so I did go to the Guinness Brewery in Dublin. I went to the Trinity Cathedral. That's the place I almost kicked over the goddamn table in the front, in the vestibule, because they were charging people to get in. I had this sense of Christ within me. I was like, you are going to charge people to come into a church? I held back. Nobody knows how controlled I am. It's disturbing what they would put upon us to get into the house of the Lord. And I almost did that in there, and I just stopped, and so instead I got pictures with dead people's sarcophages and laying on them and making jokes. But you can't charge me to get in there and do that. And then got on a damn bus and went across the country. And the thing I want to tell you, guy from Ireland that made a comment, Ireland is beautiful, but the problem is I lived there for 4.5 months out in Bath, England, where there are all these little green grasses and pastures and stone walls. It looks very similar. So I didn't give much of a shit about it as I drove across the countryside, but I got to Limerick and the clouds were out and there was no thunder in the sky, but it threatened. And we went to the church, and it turns out I was in the graveyard of somebody famous. I forget who it was, but I read about it a couple, 6-8 months ago. It turns out I was in that same damn place outside this awful church. And there were 12-year-old children. There were about 4 or 5 of them. And they came up and they started screaming in the steel gray sky. And they had rocks. And there are just a few of us. I actually called a friend of mine from the bar in Limerick. That's got nothing to do with it. These kids were screaming in Gaelic. And so I started screaming in Polish, and they just shut the fuck up. And they just looked at us. And they left, and we were safe. And I said, we got to get the fuck out of here, because they're going to get their bigger brothers. Everywhere I take people, it seems they get in trouble. What's the Limerick? Well, I believe the bottom line of every Limerick is the joke's on you. It's the tower card.